Okay, so we are in Brooks County, hopefully, at where I'm supposed to be going, to the sheriff's. And this is it. This is definitely the spot. Don't know, knocking? This is what we're gonna do. So, it's definitely it. Definitely. Hi there. Oh, sorry. Didn't want to intrude or barge in. Did you want me to wear my mask, or are you okay? Would you like us to have our mask on?
Yeah.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah, you have to wear a mask in front of you.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Okay. So we're doing a little temperature check here. All right. No problem. How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Doing well. Thank you.
Love your hair.
Thank you.
Love
Do you need to move my bangs?
You're good. And then there's sanitizer. That's the one thing that we did too. Yours
Okay.
too,
Thank you.
Is
Thank
this your
you.
sister?
Yes. She is my
You're
sister.
good, man. And you're wearing mask and sanitizer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then we're meeting with Sheriff Martinez.
Okay, Miss Spanish Lanani will be the one that's gonna take care of y'all. I don't know. Just... Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. All right. Sounds good.
How are you doing?
Doing well. How are you? Oh, nice. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so awesome. Thank you very much. Okay. I think I'm all right. Actually, thank you very much though. Okay, so we are in the conference room at the Brooks County Sheriff's Office. I brought my notebook. Well, I brought a notebook. So we are in the conference room of the Brooks County Sheriff Department, and we are going to talk with Brooks County Sheriff Benny Martinez. We're going to ask him about the checkpoint. I've been told that people are apparently going around the checkpoint and to avoid it. That's what another sheriff told me, and so we're going to see if that's the case. We're going to see what's going on, see what exactly is happening out here, and why this county has the most migrant deaths in the state. We're going to figure that out, and then we're going to ask him, is there a solution to this? Does he see something that can be changed? Does he see something that can be done? Does he need more resources? Does he have resources? All of those things, obviously, really important for the local communities too. And then I also really want to know who's responding when people are in the county illegally, when they come across people who have perished, who have died in these elements, because it's awful out here. So we are going to find out, are those resources spread thinner? Are those resources taken away from local communities? Like, what does that look like? And so I think all of those things are really important and really interesting parts of this. But while I'm talking to him, I'm gonna have my mom filming us. Jenny is gonna film us so that we can actually should I, so that I can ask questions? Maybe I should, because I don't know. You guys want to ask questions? Because if you do, then I will take over and I will ask them all as I go. Maybe I should do that. Should I? Here, I'll hold it.
They're not asking.
Okay, so we'll wait for a second, and I'm gonna hold it, because I think that if you guys ask questions and stuff, I'm gonna ask them, obviously. I'm gonna do my job and ask my questions, and then I'm gonna ask yours. Hello! Doing well, how are you? I've got my little camera set up here.
Have you all been vaccinated? No?
No.
Okay. I was going to, you can remove them if you have.
Hello, sir.
I'm Benny.
Thank you for making time
That's
for us.
okay.
I'm
Go
Allie.
ahead.
It's very nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you, Benny.
Very nice to meet you.
You have to remove your mask. It's all
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so
my staff just be safe, since I talk to a lot of people.
you do talk to quite a lot of people. Okay, Mom, maybe you should hold that. Okay. So she's gonna film us. We're just gonna chat. We just came across the checkpoint 281. I've heard some things about that. So let's first talk about what do you classify the situation as that's happening right now?
Whoa. Well,
Hit you with the first big question.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a major issue for us, right? Because just today, when y'all were traveling, we recovered 3 bodies, just today. Okay, so our number is 73. Now, it's always been like that. I mean, we understand something that we've always had dead bodies here. We've been averaging at least 50 per year.
Okay.
You know, in 2012 we hit 129, but now.
Do you know what was the cause of that in 2012?
The cause of 2012 was the fact that they resourced the Arizona area with a lot of agents, you know, technology and agents, boots in the ground type.
Mm-hmm.
So they just kind of shifted back this way.
Okay.
All right, so that's what occurred back in 2012.
Okay.
Now this issue now just occurred, right? You know, started around October, November of the previous year, and then it just, you know, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what we're getting at now. At times, 2 or 3 bodies, and that's a lot because it takes all of my resources were very minimal to do that. Okay, and I mean it's been almost all day affair since 9 o'clock this morning. You know, we're just doing the fingerprints right now. But anyway, yeah.
So, and I know you have a little bit more support than Sheriff Martinez and Del Rio, right? You have some deputies, you have some boots on the ground, for lack of a better phrase. So, when you say that your resources are stretched thin, when you have to go out and you have to recover these bodies, you have to go out and you have to investigate and do these things, what does that mean for your resources for your local community, for the county?
As far as that's concerned, kind of zero.
Okay.
You know, we don't have nothing to fall back on. And that's a major issue here.
Okay, so it has a big impact on your local
Yeah,
communities because you don't have
absolutely.
resources to allocate to that and to local
Correct.
issues.
Correct.
Okay,
We split up pretty bad. You know, it's quite uneven.
so what's the, like, do you have an idea of how to make it better? Do you have, like, what's your idea?
One of the ideas that I had that when we visited with the DHS secretary is the fact that I need this station to stay afloat. I need the personnel to stay. I need the medical staff to stay. More than not, the morse documents that go out into the brush and apply the emergency need that's needed, the assistance that's needed. Okay. To keep these people alive. Yes, and we've had 2 of them that died on the way to the hospital. We don't have a hospital. Okay, so it's a 35-40-minute drive.
George is still at the other office, so
Okay.
we stay there or
Yeah.
come up here?
Thanks. No, that'd be fine.
Just stay over there?
Yeah, sure. So that's
So
another.
35 minutes is the closest hospital.
Absolutely. And you know, when it's a dire need, we'll get the Halo Life Flight to come in here, the helicopter, and pick them up, and have one of them die on the way to the hospital and flown that direction. So we really need the medics here. We need to get that IV in there, because it's a lot of it's dehydration. So we need to get that needle in there, get them pumped up, and get them kind of revive them some.
Yeah.
And at times it's just kind of late to do that.
Now, how many checkpoints are around in this area? Is 281, is that the main one, or are there several?
Well, there's a few. There's on Highway 77. It's another checkpoint.
Okay.
You know, they call it Kennedy County.
Okay.
Checkpoint Kennedy County. Yeah. We have one here. We have kind of like a checkpoint on Highway 16, which is outside of Hermanville.
Okay.
West of us, then you go over to Laredo.
Okay.
All right, so it's kind of along the southwest corridor, sort of.
Okay.
And of course, it all depends on the volume of traffic and the direction they want to go. This is the easiest way to do it, just because of as soon as they're trying to just circumvent the checkpoint, right? These
Right.
walkers.
What's up? Like, why come from south
Mhm.
to go straight up north? Because this is straight up the pike. So what are they doing? What are the migrants doing that are, why are they going a different direction, or what's up?
A lot of it is the fact that they're going. A lot of these are being kind of transported over to Houston. That's kind of like the transportation itself is out of Houston, the Harris County area, maybe San Antonio area also. So they'll filter down here and pick them up, and then take them up towards that direction, right?
Okay, so they're coming here to get transported to Houston or San Antonio, and
Exactly.
they're dying by trying to evade the checkpoint, is what you're saying.
Yes, they're dying trying to circumvent the checkpoint.
And they're trying to do that to get to Houston or to San Antonio?
Correct. It all depends on the group as to where they're taking it, the smuggler, as to which direction they're going with it.
Okay,
Okay.
so do you know that smugglers are who is bringing these people in, or how are they getting in and having even an option to evade a checkpoint? I guess is a question.
Well, the smugglers, which is a transportation cell, they're on the north side of the checkpoint, right? They don't filter no further than the Texas 285, this major highway right here.
Okay.
This is where they stay. They stay north of here, right? So the people walk the circumvent the checkpoint, and then they'll get picked up in different locations throughout this to a Texas 285 corridor, all right?
Okay.
So they get picked up, and then they get moved to either farm to market roads or county roads, whichever road they feel safe on. I'm talking about the smuggler that's actually driving these people.
Okay.
And they'll filter up, maybe go along the coast, along the coast here, and go all the way up to, let's say, Fort Bend County, somewhere in Lavaca County, Fort Bend County, all the way up to towards the Houston area. So again, it depends on who's driving and what's the better route at the time, because they do have scouts
Okay.
ahead of them, pretty much advising the smugglers, say, okay, the road is clear, it's not clear, detain, hold.
Really?
Yes.
So they've got a whole network all along the path that they're going to take. Basically, like a trucker's network, right? Where they can talk to each other and they know what's going. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's what happens.
Huh.
Yes.
And smuggler's the term that what I deem as a smuggler is someone obviously doing something illegal, right? And that's what you're referring to as
That's
well.
what I'm referring to.
So do
Either the smuggling the people or the trafficking the people, whichever.
So is that what do they benefit from that?
Well-
The trafficking side of it?
What they benefit from that on the trafficking side, of course, then utilizing them to do the prostitution, but on the smuggling side is the monies. You know, they get paid, almost $1,000 a head
Wow.
per person.
How do you know that? How do you know how much?
Through debriefings.
Wow.
So that happens. So it's quick money, right? And the way the system is set up now, it's unless you really have a good prosecutable case, you might not get to that point of prosecution.
Okay.
Okay, so it's kind of easier to get caught with people versus narcotics. Okay, money's easier, quicker turnaround, and the sentencing guidelines are not as strong as you would get caught with narcotics.
Okay. Really?
Yes.
For people?
Yes.
So smuggling people is a less sentence than smuggling narcotics?
Correct.
Okay. That's interesting. So you do these debriefings. Who are you debriefing? Is it the victims? Is it you're talking to the
And-
smugglers
and-
after you apprehend them? How are we
Usually the smuggler.
really?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. And now we know this isn't the smuggling part of it isn't new, like you've been saying. This is an ongoing thing, right? For
Correct.
any administration for anything, but right now the numbers are undeniable. They're double, triple than what we were seeing record breaking.
Yes. Yes.
So what do you think is I mean you kind of traced back in 2012 what was going on, right? So what do you think is happening now?
I believe that, as a whole, this administration needs to kind of like double back and reinforce the administrative law, the rule of law, and reinforce the border like it should be, right?
What does that look like? Like how do they do that?
Well, this has to do with administrative, the rule of the law for one thing, enforce what's there, and make sure that technology is there, the boots on the ground there, just like we used to have it before everything just kind of like went away, sort of. So we need to do that because we need to know who's coming across, number one. We do have legitimate business on these folks that are coming across, right? Because they are utilized for work. That's a no-brainer.
Yes.
But we want to make sure that, because my point is, okay, here they're dying. We have 73 that died here today. Okay, why are they dying? If they can just as easy get to the port of entry, right? So let's enforce this port of entry. Let's make it work. All right, streamline whatever is it that they want to do. Get the biometrics. Let's check their background. I mean, because we have numerous of criminals that's been encountered with sexual offenses behind them. Okay, we've had some females have gotten raped in this county also. We've had, issues like that really no one really talks about. So
Now, are they like homeowners? Are they women that like live, that are, how women that are being raped? Can you elaborate a little bit more?
these are just females that are coming with a group,
Okay,
okay, and they just take advantage of it,
wow,
plain and simple,
okay.
right? So the other factor is the fact that they're being held in stash houses, okay? So stash houses, example this room, they're probably stuffing with maybe 150, 200 people in there.
Really?
Okay, so the conditions are just abnormal, totally, right?
Okay, yeah.
So they lack the water, they lack the food, they lack everything. It's very inhumane, right? That's how they get treated, right? So that's another factor. When they get transported up as close as they can to the checkpoint, and you know where the checkpoint is at, you drove through it. So when they try to circumvent, our heat index is probably 105, 110 right now. Okay, so if you get out in the brush, you're not going to feel that breeze. It's going to feel like being in an oven when you just can't breathe. So that becomes a big issue, right? So lack of, right, all the proper water, food, etc. Then the heat on top of that, it makes it very difficult for them. And then if they run out of water, they want to drink water from the water trough, right? And sometimes it's not good to really drink hot water. It's not really conducive to the system.
Yeah.
Your system's just down. So little layers like that. I mean, it's very complex. This whole issue is complex, but we definitely need to make an effort between both parties to reach an agreement that's comfortable with everyone. They're coming across fine, but we need to know who's coming across and where they're going. Identify. Let's make it correct. I don't think no one really objects to what's occurred. What they're objecting to is all the criminal elements coming with it. Okay? And the criminal element, I'm saying, is that they pretty much conceal themselves within that group. And that's the hard part. Okay? So that's just why people get left behind. If they're not up to speed, they don't get left behind. And that's how they're doing. They don't have time to wait. Okay? This is why we get numerous calls here. That's they left my brother at this location, or they left this other person in this one. Good example, last week we
So
had
someone will call, like another migrant will call and say we left someone here?
that or a relative. It's usually a relative, right? Okay, example, we had a gentleman from Houston that drove down from Houston, and he had a pin on his phone saying this is where the body was left. Okay, they went to that location, the body was there. So how would someone from Houston just jump the fence and know where the body's at? He knows that because he was told where the body was at, and he was given the location versus calling law enforcement and letting us handle it. Okay, so there's layers here, that people know what's happening. Okay, and so instead of calling law enforcement, they'll call someone else that very possibly might be involved in this transaction, right? And they'll come and get the body. Okay, so another example, a week and a half ago, a van that killed 10 out of 30 people in the van. All right, we started getting calls within hours, maybe a couple of hours after that crash about, I think my son was there or my cousin was there, because they knew when that van was going to leave, right? I mean, there's a lot of issues here that needs to be fixed, and it goes back to let's fix this. Let's look at this immigration issue and fix it. We definitely don't need people dying. Okay? I mean, they're only 70 miles north of the river. They haven't even started yet. So just sit down and fix this thing. Right? It's is it simple? No. I know it's complex. But look at the sacrifices occurring here. We have three phases here that I usually refer to, which is the national security issue, number one. A public issue is the COVID now, and the humanitarian issue. All right. As a lawman, you're going to do the first part first, and then at the end of the day, the humanitarian issue comes in, because that's the way it works. At least that's the way I do things. That's pretty much the bottom line.
Do you feel like that's the way that you're able to do things right now?
No, not really. because we're picking up these bodies, which is the end of the road, for them, right? It's over for them. This is it. This is as far as they got. And it's a sad thing because this is a person. It's not just anything else laying out there. This is a person. It belongs to someone.
What is the sentiment amongst your county members, your community members? Are they frustrated? Are they, is it a sad thing? Where is what kind of feedback are you getting from people in your community?
It's a combination of feeling sorry for them, right? And then the fact that they know they come to work, all right? So there's different sentiments, depends who you talk to, right? But it all evolves back to do it correctly, right? That's the bottom line. Do it correctly. You're welcome. No worries.
Now, Secretary Mayorkas was here on Thursday, right?
Correct.
Now, are you meeting with him again on this Thursday? Are you guys going to be working on solutions, or are you working with anybody?
I don't have no meetings with him this Thursday. I think it might be someone else. Our meeting was with law enforcement back then last Thursday, and we talked about those issues. I know that he mentioned that he had talked to Mexico. I brought up the fact that, listen, we're providing a lot of funding for these other countries, where these people are coming from. We need to reach out that far back, that far south, to make sure every country does its part. In other words, hold them accountable for all the fundings they're receiving. Because they're receiving a lot.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
How do you know those details? How do you know where the funding is being allocated and coming from? And how did you come to that conclusion, or walk me through
Well,
that?
that's just the research that I've done myself, and it tells us the fundings that they're getting, right? And then it tells us, and it leads to corruption, it leads to everything else, but still, though, we still need to do something. We need to hold them accountable for, this is their people, right? And we're having to deal with this. So I think every single country ought to be accountable for what they do, like we are, So anytime we have monies allocated to us, we're accountable for the monies. So they need to be accountable too. And I think the further back you go with it, the better. You have to. It's just getting Mexico involved in the South End, really, that's not enough at this point. Because it's really wide open right now. It really is. Okay, there's no stopping it.
So even with Title 42 extended, you don't feel like that's...
No, I don't. Because why they're still crossing to the brush, why they're still drowning. I mean, what are the answers to that? And we're 70 miles north. Why is it impacting us here, 70 miles north?
That's what my question was too. Driving up here, I was having a really hard time understanding why people were walking in the middle of nowhere out here.
Who's profiting from this?
Who is?
Right. You see, so I'm saying that the criminals are the ones that are going to profit from this, because they're not.
So are they tied all the way back to when you were saying trace it back to these countries back, where this money is being allocated? Do you think that money is funding?
Well, I think that's another research by itself. That's another totally different branch from the tree, because it's very possible. We don't know. I know.
We have a quick question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to
What's the
interrupt.
question?
A couple of people have asked, what countries are they coming from and why?
The triangle, which is Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. Those are the countries. And what it is, the question that comes up a lot is because they're just deprived, they don't have anything, they need assistance, they need aid, they need medical help, whatever. So that's one of the major issues that they're having, okay? So the
So you
funding is,
wouldn't classify that as asylum seeking?
well, that's totally different too.
Right.
Okay, now we're talking about something different.
Yeah,
Okay?
and so, but that would be the way to be able to get
Yes,
access.
but you have to streamline that, okay? Instead of processing and then give them a ticket and leave,
Yeah.
and then show up in court, which is,
Yeah,
You
okay,
only
we gotta dig into that too,
so
but
you
let's go
only
back
get,
to
you
the
only
country
get
part.
5% of them returning back. That's the estimated percentage. They come back to actual court, 5%.
Okay, we're gonna touch back on that in
Sure.
1 second.
Sure.
I wanna go over the triangle a little bit more first
Sure.
before we go into how those people are released and expected to come back. So Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, that's what, and it's because they are looking for aid, looking for basically the resources that we have here in the United States.
Correct.
So how do they, as people were asking, how do they get from Guatemala and El Salvador? They aren't walking, it's impossible, right? So how do they get to Mexico, to the mainland, to get into the US?
They have their own transportation down there.
how do you know that?
And either through buses, because that's what they tell us.
Okay.
Or through the
Through
people like
debriefing.
this, yes.
Okay.
Either they use buses that'll bring them up X amount of miles, and then the train that they use also that brings them up. That's another way of transportation. They have transportation. They're in a caravan where they're actually walking, right? But through debriefings, a lot of it is transportation that's being provided by others. And I'm sure there's not a free ride. I'm sure there's money's being exchanged there.
And that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering is
Okay.
who's benefiting
Well,
from that, or who would be funding that, and why would that benefit them?
well, I think that's a very deep question because it'll take more research to find out actually who's behind all this and who's making the funds, who's making the money, and who's providing the funds.
And nobody's
Okay.
talking about that in
No.
briefings. They
No.
keep a tight lip on that.
Yes.
Okay, but obviously that question's asked. They just
Absolutely.
aren't answering where
Absolutely.
the money is coming from.
Yes.
Okay, so that's interesting to me because we were talking about like smugglers will be
Mhm.
pretty open with different things that they're doing, but these people once they're apprehended, they won't basically rat out who sent them over.
Yeah, absolutely. They're real tight. Even the victims, the actual females that can actually get raped, they'll get close to it, but they won't flat out say. They'll give you a description. Well, he had a tattoo, he had a gold tooth, he had something in his ear, pierced ears, tattoo in the chest. And that's how we get it. So what we do with that information, we collect it, we gather it, and we forward it back to Border Patrol as an intel type of form. So where if they ever get someone that might resemble something like this, they can put them on the lineup, okay? And then it'll be up to her to say, okay, this is the person. But that would never get to that point because
Right.
it's never discovered anymore, okay? Because either she, like, okay, I forgot how they look, there's no more interest because she's already in the U.S., okay?
So what you're saying, like she's kind of protecting them and herself.
Yes, because I also found out that during the briefings that sometimes the family members actually know who the coyote is, who's actually in charge of everything. So that also puts their family in jeopardy.
So are these people linking up with the coyote?
Mhm.
They're bringing them over, and that person is taking advantage of these women, or it's someone in that group? Is it the coyote himself or themselves? Do you know?
It varies.
Okay, it's just
Some-
unsafe altogether.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It varies. It could be, it's been instances of the coyote, and it's been instances of other people in the group, right?
Okay.
And the men don't even get involved. They don't even get the victim, right? Because now she becomes the victim, right?
Okay.
Right. And then now it's due process because she's a U.S. citizen. And a lot of times they cry rape, but it happened right along the border, right along as soon as they come over in the stash houses or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll go ahead and take the report and we'll send it to get examined, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so now when people come over and you make these apprehensions, you've got hundreds of thousands of apprehensions across the state, basically, right? Since over the last 8 months. So I know you guys have a pretty big detention facility here. Is that where do people get detained here in the migration process? Is that separate? Is that more of a Gen Pop situation? Or what is that?
That belongs to the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Nothing with ICE, nothing with anything with immigration at all.
Okay.
No.
So are there detainment facilities specifically for immigration in this county or in this area?
In this area, no.
Okay. Are there some down south?
There might be one down south, or they're usually like 2 hours, I guess, north of here.
Okay.
You're going up towards the Del Rio area, you have some up in that area.
Okay. So now as far as who is apprehended right now, obviously, I believe it's just kind of children are kind of the exception. But we know that that's not necessarily, we've seen images, we know that other people are coming in as well. Can you tell me what the majority of people like being apprehended? Are they men, women? Like what does the demographic look like generally coming across that are being apprehended?
I would say probably maybe 60-40, 65-45, the men being a little bit higher than the women.
Okay. Even though they know there's not really supposed to be a chance they can get in.
Correct. That's one of the chances they're taking. That hopefully they can filter through it. And for instance, we've got most of these recovered bodies, they've been around between 19 and 25, sort of, probably the average age, and that's pretty young.
And mostly men?
And men, yes.
Okay.
We do have a percentage of women too. It's not that far below the men.
Any children? Can I ask?
No children. We've come across 12-year-olds, 15.
That have deceased or that were alive?
No, I'm sorry. That we have
Been able to rescue?
been able to rescue.
Wow.
And so,
Okay.
and I visited with them, and they're well, we're just going to Houston. They said we're just up the road. Well, it's not. It's just one of those things that they're told. Okay.
Okay, so they're kind of being sold a bag of goods.
That's it.
Okay.
And then we have our own group here also that might see someone walking or something, they'll go and grab. We have our own smugglers here also.
Can you
Okay.
elaborate a little bit
Well,
more on that?
we-
I think it's
yeah.
important to know that this
We
isn't
do
just a
have-
migrant problem.
We do have some of our smugglers here
Okay.
that collaborate with the Houston bunch, and they'll get in through messages.
It's that
Ask,
truckers
yes,
network.
here's a group.
Okay.
Get this group for me over to Houston, and you get paid when we go to Houston. So that's another issue that we have here locally, and we do have, we identify a few stash houses here. So again, but we do collaborate very well with ICE, and we do go after these people, and we've done well with them. Good success stories on those people getting arrested, etc.
Can you talk a little bit more about your relationship with ICE and how they supplement the Sheriff's Department and what that looks like?
On the supplement part, it's just boots on the ground if we need it as resources, but we do collaborate very well. I've been working with ICE probably since mid-1990s, 95, that's when I started working for them.
And what does it look like when you need them though? Do you call them and you're like, hey, we've got a stash house, or hey, we've got a van? I mean, what does it need? What's the need for ICE to come in?
Well, the need is, as long as we can identify the smuggler, as long as we have details as to what's going on, we'll call them, we'll try to advance the call as early as possible, just so they can get themselves lined up.
Okay.
And collaborate with it, right? So at times though, when it doesn't happen, we'll notify a county that's maybe 2-3 hours from here, and they'll intercept, okay? And secure the people and arrest the smugglers.
Okay.
So we kind of collaborate between here and all the way out to Fort Bend. We have certain people that we can call, and they will act on it, okay?
Okay.
So it's one of those mutual aid type of things, long distance mutual aids, that we can collaborate and we can make a lot of good connections in that matter.
So now with the mayor's disaster declaration in McAllen, that doesn't have any impact on you in this county or in this city area.
No.
But is that something that could potentially encourage, is it something that you're seeing in the state, maybe expanding that disaster declaration? I know that just kind of allocates a little bit more resources and allows for some more enforcement. So is that something you would be seeking here, or?
Well, the county is seeking that.
Okay.
The county is, right, with the city also. So, and just because our main issue here is all local smugglers coming in from Houston to San Antonio, and then those that are dying. So that's really why that's being done. So it's just one of those things that we have to work through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Work in progress like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So we just filter it and push it out.
Mm-hmm.
We have temporary morgue that we probably have like 20, I don't know, over 20 bodies, 25 bodies in there currently right now that we're storing.
You had to erect a temporary morgue.
Yes, little small temporary morgue, yes, from the state of Texas, the health department.
Okay. Well, do you have a question?
Not on that.
Okay. So what, 73 bodies year to date, what does a normal year look like for you?
Was it like the year prior was we had 30, 34.
Okay, so how do you, how are you guys doing? How are you handling all of this, and how is how are your deputies handling that? Because that's an insurmountable amount of people. I mean, that's over double.
The deputies definitely tired of it. You know, they're just frustrated because they do a lot of that. They do a lot of because the way that the system is written up, once these migrants die, and let's say in Brooks County, for instance, it belongs to the locals. It does not belong to Border Patrol or to the federal government. It belongs to the locals.
Okay, why is that?
It's the way they have it.
Wow.
So that's something also that's being
So
looked
that
at.
that goes that I mean.
That burden is on us.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So between 2009 and 2012, this county took a huge hit of $680,000 plus thousands of dollars.
Because when you have that many deaths,
Yes.
and that
That's correct.
impacts the money that, wow, okay.
Correct. So
Okay,
right now we're trying to, of course, work in progress. It has been since 2012. We're still working through this, right?
yes,
Not only trying to get the reimbursement for the monies we lost, but also trying to get the resources we need to at least have it in place
Mhm.
in case that's what we got now.
Mhm.
Okay, we'll hit 100 before the year's up. I just don't doubt
you
that.
don't see this slowing down?
No, I do not. You know, because, and I really don't know what the rhetoric is on the south end as to why they're coming over. All they're saying is, well, I want something better for myself. Okay, right, but we just need to do it correctly, you know, and that's kind of like the bottom line here.
Mhm. And like you said, this is a threefold issue in the humanitarian part.
Mhm.
I mean, they're dying, so that goes out the window. It's no
Yeah.
longer humane.
Exactly, and I must say though, the ones who we have tested, because we do test for the COVID also,
Mhm.
we're right at over 20% of them positive.
We had people asking about the
Yes.
COVID.
Okay, so let's talk about COVID and talk about what you're saying. 20% are positive right now
At
coming
least.
across in this area, in this county.
Here in Brooks County, all those bodies we recovered, yes.
So out of the 73 bodies, 20% of them were COVID positive.
Yes.
Okay, and now, so kind of break down what that would look like for the migrants coming into your county. What is like, are we seeing a lot of migrants with those cases, or are you only testing the bodies? What does that look like?
I don't, the only bodies that I can see are the dead ones.
Okay.
Because the live ones, when they get transferred over to Border Patrol, a local station. All right, so they have their own numbers as far as the COVID issue. But my understanding that I don't even know if they're getting tested before they get shipped out. That I don't know. They might be getting tested, might be not. But even NGOs right now are overwhelmed with it. Okay, so that's another big issue that's occurring.
Can you elaborate on that?
On the NGOs, the fact that they're just overwhelmed with all the people that they have to take care of,
Okay.
to look after.
Okay,
Okay.
and that's like
So-
Catholic Charities
Yes,
and
correct.
things like that. So Catholic Charities is one of the main entities here that has open shelters and temporary emergency shelters.
is
I
in
know
my
they
county.
with Guadalupe also.
Yeah,
did
this
that.
is in my county.
Okay.
Again, another an hour and a half from here.
Right. So do you have any NGOs? Okay. And why is that?
We don't have it. We don't have that. We have one NGO, and he basically what he does provides canisters with water in them and ranches. Okay, that's what he does.
Okay.
But we don't have a shelter. We don't have anything.
So are you hoping that would come if
Well-
the disaster declaration was extended to this county as well?
What I was hoping really that would come is the medical assets I need. Because with medical assets, then you would have pop-up tents to care for them, right?
Okay.
And then you'll have the opportunity to talk to them. So they become a victim, so you exchange information as to the what, the where, the when, and how, okay? And that, you can gather that information to kind of help the purpose as to how to combat this, okay, at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So it's twofold. You know, the law enforcement part will be done, and also the humanitarian part will be done. But we also have to make sure that they get tested for COVID. That is the key. Also,
But you don't know if they are.
we don't know if they are. I don't know if they are. I know that dead bodies are, because that's what we're doing.
Okay. So have you guys in your county, have you seen an influx of COVID cases?
There's a little rise up there, but I cannot say that it belongs
Right.
because of them. But I can't say that, yes, we do have.
You have an increase right
We
now?
have an increase. I think everyone is having an increase.
Okay. Now, are there any other questions about COVID specifically?
There was a few about COVID.
Are there vaccines are available for them, right?
Yes, in fact,
Are they-
people are always getting vaccinated. Yes.
So are
We're
they-
over 65% of the county has been vaccinated.
Are they required? Like, are the migrants required or asked or?
I'll
do
be
you
honest
know?
with you, I don't see why they would have a choice. I mean, they're coming into the United States, and I think they need to get vaccinated because we don't know what else to carry them.
Okay.
Okay, that's another issue. That's what I'm saying. If you screen them when they first get to the border, then we know what we're looking at. Versus just
So that's
them
where,
coming
is that
across.
where you would want the medical assets
Exactly,
allocated,
yes.
not up here? Because you don't even want them to be able to get to this point because that's unsafe.
Right,
is what you're
but
saying.
the fact that they get here, let's have something here in place for them.
Okay.
Okay, for that
Being
reason.
proactive because you know it's
It's-
happening.
That's my point.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, now, any other questions about COVID or do you have any, Jenny, that you were thinking of?
I do, and I don't know if you can answer this. It's in regards to COVID and the deaths, the bodies that he's found. Has anybody, any medical people said that their death was caused by COVID?
No, the answer would be no.
Okay, no, okay.
Okay, so now I want to go back to when we were talking about the court dates / alleged court dates. Walk me through the process, if you can, is what you best know when a migrant comes across the border and hits that first point. What does that look like?
Well, it looks like this, as to what I'm gathering, is the fact that once they get the notice, like they're forwarded into the interior of the U.S., and they're told to get to a court date within maybe 24, 36 months. Okay? Right.
So
it's
2 to
quite
3, I mean, it's a,
it's a pretty long process.
okay.
Right. So, but in between that process, that person could possibly get married, or could possibly have a child, or something.
3 years is quite a long time.
That's really going to deflect this issue, right? So, and only 5% show up for the court date. So, if we have something in place where they can streamline the process, I think it'll be better because you can probably provide some type of visa for them, some type of ID saying, okay, you got 10 or 20 years here, you're comfortable with, you can do this. So there's a lot of little avenues that can take place into this. And I'm just saying for the purpose of identification, the purpose of the health, public health, okay, and the humanitarian part. So all these little phases that occurs here, specifically in Brooks County. Because that's my goal, is to protect my community. So if I can protect it here as much as possible, I definitely going to protect the interior of the rest of the state of Texas and the U.S.
And Sheriff Martinez, it sounds a little bit to me like you are not giving up on the idea that migrants are going to come across, because we know that migrants are going to come
No, they're
across,
coming
like you
across.
said.
Absolutely.
But it's more so making the process make sense, making it more of a safe situation, and being proactive because you know it's inevitable. So how can you make it a better, more humane situation? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we need to streamline. The laws are in place. We just need to streamline them. Why would it, I have a friend of mine that's taken almost 25, 30 years to become a citizen. Why does it take so long? Okay. So if you can streamline this, we used to have these work visas, they're still out there. So why does it take so long? Let's do something. Let's streamline this issue, all right, for the humanitarian part.
What do you think, how do you think that would be received, though? Because that would almost be more of a
Okay.
welcome arms.
Absolutely.
But right now, the
Okay.
border's kind of open-ish.
Yes. So what's in the best interest? Okay. I'm talking about Brooks County. I'm not filtering anything up there. I'm saying we need to become proactive on something. All right. Because that's too many deaths. Period. That's it. Right. Now, if they can maybe go to within the consulates within their own country and do it there, right? And then process. I mean, they're coming here for something. I mean, what is it? Now, get this. Okay, we already have about 1 million people already, maybe more. Okay,
Maybe more.
all right. So this is what I'm getting at. We need to identify them. Okay, we need to extract all the criminals that really have some hardcore violations, And I'm
Do you
not talking about.
believe that there are hardcore criminals
Oh,
that are
absolutely,
in?
absolutely.
And why do you believe that?
Because MS-13 is not gonna stay in where they're from. They're already vetted.
And there, I know
Yeah,
that
okay.
I know that you guys have apprehended some
Yes.
MS-13
Yeah,
gang members.
yeah,
So does
we
that
do.
mean when there's one, there's many, or is that what the assumption is?
That's pretty much what it is, right?
Okay.
So it's.
So that's the ones we know about. So that means there are some that we don't know about
Yes,
running amok, for lack of a better phrase.
correct.
And how does that make you feel, and how does that make your
Well,
community
it should
feel?
be, the community should feel unsafe about it, right? They should like, okay, we need to get to this point.
But what can they do? And your guys'
Yeah.
resources are already so thin, and you're
Well,
about getting
okay.
bodies, so what
Another
do they
issue
do?
that occurs here though, they're just passing through, okay? We caught ones, maybe 30 months ago, maybe more, that actually had a backpack, maybe 60-pound backpack. And the only reason we tied him into the backpack is he dropped it and he hit the backpack was because we took his shirt off. And guess what he had on his shoulders? Pretty good intentions. You carry that much weight, just like anything else. You have a heavy purse, you're gonna get a little
Wow.
markings on the shoulders. Well, he had them both. So what does that tell you? Okay, and he was pretty straight up with it.
Really?
Yeah, because he doesn't fear it. He knows our system is pretty lax. So away he goes.
So what happens?
No, he did his time. Heaven knows what happened. Probably got deported. Deported back already.
What would time be for an apprehension of an MS-13 gang member
Well,
in your
You're not.
experience?
50 pounds. I'm not looking for a whole lot. I'm looking for maybe 30 months, 50 months.
Really?
Or something. Yeah.
For a criminal
Yeah.
that is capable of some pretty treacherous.
And
things.
when you're saying he's carrying a backpack, what kind of drugs are in that backpack?
Marijuana.
Yeah.
Real simple. It's marijuana.
Yeah.
We really haven't
I know
got
you guys
it.
have had a fentanyl
Well,
kind of flow too.
well, see, that's another issue that I'm always stay on top of because they could carry that.
Okay.
They could carry cocaine. They could carry something that can explode, couldn't they?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So things like that we need to be subconscious of that they can happen.
And I mean,
Because our borders are wide open right now.
Well,
Well, they've
yeah.
always been like that, okay? I shouldn't say right now. It's always been like that.
we're just
But in
seeing.
terms of them walking through with something that can really hurt people.
So do you find that the drugs that are most of the time marijuana then that you're seeing is marijuana coming across?
Marijuana and at times cocaine,
Okay.
yes.
Sorry, sir. Do you want me to lock the doors, or do you want me to stay here till y'all are done? Or
No, you can leave, I'll lock them.
this door too? And this
You can lock this one, I'll let them out the back.
Okay, and you'll let them out to the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine.
Okay.
So, thank you. So they're bringing in these drugs, they're getting apprehended, they might serve 30 months,
Maybe.
and then they get deported, or they're back out in
No.
our country, or what's?
They get deported.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But in the situation right now, we've got some smugglers that they're undocumented smugglers, right, that we have arrested and we've had in custody. So upon their release after they set bond, because they're entitled to bond, we release them to Border Patrol. At times, either they'll come and get them or they won't.
What does that mean? They just leave them there, and they?
Well, they're just gonna go
Leave?
about the business, yeah, because they're so, the fact is, almost 65-70% of the staff here is gone. They're down south, okay? So that it minimizes the boots on the ground here,
Okay.
okay? That's another big issue. Because there have been some optional, what they call it optional conversation of shutting the checkpoint down that you just drove through.
That's the longest standing checkpoint, isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
And it's the busiest.
It's
Isn't
busiest.
it in the state?
It is.
So why would they shut that down?
Resources. It's all about resources.
But then
If
wouldn't
you
more
can't-
people
if you-
get through?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, this is where we at right now. That's just a conversation, but that's where we at.
Okay.
And it should have never been a conversation. That should never happen.
We have a question. Somebody is asking, Robert is asking, do you feel abandoned by the current administration?
You know, I'm so busy that I really don't think about what the administration doing. I'm just filtering out what we're going through. And as I did to the secretary, DHS secretary, as to how I felt, you know, and this is what I need.
What did you tell them? Can you tell us what you
Sure.
what you
Well,
said?
I simply said, listen, you know the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Okay, this is what I need though. I need medical assets. And this is why I need the medical assets, because they're dying here, okay? And you can, bring in whatever assets you want to bring in, military assets in terms of medical, to get these, and get proactive on these folks. Test them, check them, and just process them. Why
Do you
not?
feel like they don't want to use those resources, or what is it?
I don't know. I can only send the message out.
Okay.
And I do that. I do it pretty often. I send the message out. It's almost like, okay, here comes Biggie again. He's going to tell us the same thing. That's what I have, though. I cannot talk about something else if I don't have it. I have this issue, right? So that's what we deal with.
And I mean, it's literally in your backyard, but for them, it's kind of like those 70 people are no longer a problem for us,
Correct.
and they're a problem for you.
It becomes my problem. Simply because of how it's written. Since he dies, now it belongs at the state level.
Even
In
when
this
they're not
case-
a resident, well, like even when they're not a citizen, how is that? How does that make?
I can't figure that one out yet. I've been trying to get that through my thoughts since 2009. when it
Now,
started.
are you having those conversations about
Yes.
having, something amended to not
Absolutely.
weigh on you? Because this is, like you said, you know that you get 30, but 73 is,
We average 50 a year.
yeah.
Okay.
And you believe you'll hit 100 easily
Oh,
this year.
absolutely. We already
You
got
had 3
73.
today.
27 more, you'll hit 100.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I don't do math.
I don't either.
So do you feel like there's a lack of not only support, but like a lack of empathy for you, what you're dealing with in your county?
I see things here, like in Brooks County, for instance, we're not populated as any other county, like or the Valley, for instance, Houston. So I can see things going by the wayside, just the fact, well, there's not a whole lot of population. You only have very minimal people that actually vote, so it's not gonna make a whole lot of difference whether the help gets there or not, right? So, but my issue is that we're still in the United States. Texas is still part of it, right?
Berks County is still part of that.
Exactly. So they still need to look at us as they should, and provide the assets that we need, provide the resources that are needed to really do just contain this. Because it's not being contained on the borders, as well. No, not if we have 73 people that died here. And then we're not even talking about the getaways. That's probably over 200% of it.
That's what I was going to
Okay.
ask too. Is we see the videos. We've seen cartel. We've seen people kind of distracting border agents and the cartel going across. And those are the ones, like I said, that we know of, right? So you're saying that there's a 200% basically
Oh, yes.
populist group that we don't know about.
Correct.
Okay, can you elaborate on that?
Yes, for every vehicle that we carry that carries out here, we're probably running about 15, 20 people. That van had 30, okay, for instance. Out of those 30, apprehensions are probably maybe 5 to 6 of those, because everybody's going to scatter. So they'll grab 5 or 6 out of the 30, so how many got away?
Okay.
Okay, so you start multiplying that, and we have.
How many vans are we talking?
At times, we have 5 per se vans that can drop off people in the evening. 5 of them.
5. And
5.
where does this happen? Where do you know where this is happening?
Yes,
Or
it happens just south of the checkpoint where you drove up, or further down another 10 miles here. So sometimes we'll walk a little bit further, all right? The body we recovered over here on the west of town there, when the guy from Houston came in that I mentioned earlier. Okay, that said, simultaneously, the Border Patrol were tracking 2 groups of 30. 2 groups, which meant 60 people walking through the doors. Okay?
how many did they apprehend?
Don't know. But you get the picture. That's what we're going through here. All right? And that's constant. That's constant.
And that is, can you juxtapose previous years? Just so we can understand if there is, more, less, what does that look like?
Somebody asked a question, and I don't know if he joined a little later, but he said, were you better off a year ago?
I don't see how we were better off a year ago simply because we have 73 bodies now versus 34 a year ago.
Right.
So I don't see that. Okay. I don't see that because currently we can run maybe 4 to 5 pursuits a day. We weren't doing that a year ago. all right?
So you have more apprehensions now
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
than a year ago?
Yes. Again, I'm just talking about Brooks County.
Right,
That's
So
all.
everybody
Because-
watching, this is specific to Sheriff Martinez's county, it's
Yes.
Brooks County.
Correct. 70 miles north of the river. So I'm specifically talking about that. I'm not talking about anything else but Brooks County.
Yes.
Our numbers are real high here. Absolutely.
Are you seeing crime also increasing? What is that impact looking like for your county?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, but crime in terms of them either stealing trucks from the ranches, going inside houses, okay, or
And what do homeowners, what is their right, I guess? Or what are
Well-
people allowed to do if a migrant or somebody, a MS-13 is in their yard or home?
They have to protect themselves. That's all I can say.
Okay.
You know, they're gonna know the threat. I'm not gonna be there to see it. They
Are
won't be
these,
there to see it.
are some of these people threatening? Are they,
We had an incident where one of the ranch managers got pushed. Okay, and it wasn't by it was by a smuggler that actually was looking for the route. He just happened to turn down the wrong alleyway or gravel road, right? That's what we refer to them here, gravel roads. And he pushed the ranch owner. The ranch owner didn't do anything because his children were there and the wife was there.
no.
We can't have that. We cannot have that.
But we haven't, have you had any migrants, no attacks? I mean, pushing, that assault is assault, but
Yes.
have there been
No.
any, like, lethal, any kind of physical, any kind of weapons or anything like that?
We have had very minimal struggles between them.
Okay.
Minimal, not alarming, just minimal. We've had them go through maybe with a tractor, a farm implement, a tractor, maybe go through maybe 5-8 fence lines and just tear them down. Now you have to understand that here in Brooks County, it's about livestock and that's their livelihood. And sometimes you do have what I would refer to as a prize bull or a specific animal or a specific game. Okay.
Yes.
And that's what the ranchers live on.
Right.
Right. So those are the issues that we deal with.
Okay.
So it's again, Brooks County, different scenario, right?
Yeah.
So
What are your citizens telling you? What's the sentiment that you're getting from them?
well, just west of town here, a lady called me and says, I'm alone. My husband's working in the oil rigs. I saw a group of 40 just walk by my house. I said,
Boy.
just kind of stay inside and we'll react to that. You know.
So what is a reaction, what does a response like that
What-
look like from you guys?
What we're going to go after it as hard as we can.
And so
right?
what is your right? Because I know a lot of times you turn them over to Customs and Border Protection. So what is your right to apprehend them? And are you only able to apprehend 5 or 6 or 40
No.
as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
The threat. You have to assess the threat. That's our right. Okay, so I got to protect my community. That's all there is to it. That's the bottom line.
So what is the basis for you apprehending them outside of them coming into our country illegally? Is that the basis, or what is your apprehension
The
look like?
basis is depend on the caller. Okay, what's the urgency? Okay, what is the need that we need to get there? Right. So it's all depends on the caller. If the caller feels threatened and she feels like scared, well then there's a need
Okay.
and we need to go.
Okay.
Okay. Now if they just walking through, well then of course we collaborate with Border Patrol and we'll try to sweep them all at one time versus them scattering all over the place and then we'll have to go back again and search for more. If that makes any sense.
That's a lot of resources.
So that's what you need resources for that. Yes.
Okay, so with people with migrants that are coming across, and with the amount of people that are dying, are you conveying that to the administration? Are you talking about that with the Department of Homeland Security? Like, what does that conversation look like? And how is it received that you've had, almost, you're doubling what you guys would normally double on deaths in a
Of
year?
course, there's a lot of note taking, they sit there, the round table we have with the DHS Secretary, there's a lot of note taking. We had kind of like a sidebar conversation after that meeting with one of his personnel that was with him.
Can you talk a little bit about that conversation?
Well, that conversation was about the medical need that I had.
What you needed.
Yes, and of course we talked about the footprint and we talked about little logistics in that manner as to what's gonna be needed, and they're supposed to be back with me, so I'm just kind of waiting on that.
How do you feel? Do you feel supported? Do you feel like it was received
No,
well?
I felt like they were listening. I felt comfortable because you just came, you came high in numbers. You know, I'm not about to say something that's not correct, neither. And that's what we need. We need those assets.
Do you know specifically your county numbers? Because we've seen the border at, like in general, but do you know what your county numbers are, or do you know specifically what the state numbers are?
I don't know the state numbers. I know that we probably had an increase in maybe over 300% on rescue calls because everything call filters through our 911 system. Okay, so we know that. We do know the deaths. We do know the fact that on the getaways, because we've been involved in those type of issues, right? We know about the pursuits. We know about the property damage. You know, anything that has to do with that. We know because we get a lot of callers that we get from different states saying that my cousin was led back there, or my brother.
Like you said, someone alerted them.
Someone alerted them, and it circles back to me.
Okay.
We know that. We know what happens here in Brooks County.
So are we seeing an uptick across the board then, from years previous?
Oh, yes. Here in Brooks County, yes.
Yeah.
And as you well know, what Joe Frank is going through up in the Del Rio area. You know, I know they're just kind of coming across. And again, you know, why do we have floaters? We shouldn't have floaters. We shouldn't have that.
What does that mean to you when you have that situation, you're dealing with that?
It's difficult in the sense that, okay, we can't prevent that. Without resources, you can't prevent that.
Is it preventable?
Yes, because if you have enough resources, enough boots on the ground, if you have the air stand like we used to have, air stand was a big old balloon that actually guided you to where those groups were.
There was a big
Air stand.
Really?
What?
Under what administration was that?
Well, it was with the previous administration.
Okay, so it
But
was.
because of the cost or something related to that.
So it was new in the last administration, and it
Yes.
went away over the
Yes.
last year.
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, we have two in Brooks County, and one of them got relocated down to the border.
And now that one's gone as well.
And
They don't have any.
I'm guessing it's gone too, because just the cost of it is just.
Was that
And
like
it's
a
kind of
drone?
Drone kind of vibe, like a.
It's like a Goodyear blip, and
Right.
it was being run by private sector down on the ground level. They're
So
also
would you
another
want
county.
something like that back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then we have way over 200-300 placards out there within the brush. And placards are just metal type that tells you where you're at. You have a little number on the bottom. They call 911, you give us that number, and we can get to you pretty quick because we know where that number's at.
Okay.
We have at least 200 or 300 of those out there. Okay. We have beacons that they can go up there, hit a button, stay there, they can be rescued.
Okay.
Right.
So now,
So.
but what is that? I mean, like we were saying, it's inevitable. But they aren't citizens. You have to use your resources. Like, what does that mean for the county when that is happening?
Well, it just means that that's what we have to do.
Okay.
That's all it means. It's.
You can't be. You're kind of choosing the lesser of two evils in your mind. You can't handle. You're not going to be able to stop it. So how can you mitigate it or make it more humane?
This is what I'm getting at. If we bring in that resources we need, we can stop it here and keep more people alive because they're coming. They're not going to stop. Okay.
But then what's the solution to keep those alive people going in the legal process, right? Like then that's a whole nother.
That's totally another different branch.
Yeah, we got to tackle one thing at a time.
Yes.
So, as far as obviously we know the border wall construction was happening, it has since ended. Did you see any instant impacts from that? Has that been something that you? Where are your feelings on that?
Personally, I believe in the wall.
You do believe?
Yes, because as a law enforcement for 42 years, all that is to me is a tool, just another tool. You have to get to a certain location where you can identify. You still need to identify, right? You still need your boots in the ground, but at least you can get it in a certain area where it's a lot easier to get to and identify versus it being wide open and here to come.
Is that where it stopped? Is that where they're coming in through? Is where the border wall construction ended?
Well, I don't, in this case, I don't know, because it's down south. I'm just saying, I believe in the walk is just a little tool. To me, it's a tool. From law,
Just one little thing that
from a
can
law
stop.
enforcement perspective, to me, it's a tool.
Okay,
And it's needed,
got it.
okay? So, but we need the technology with it, and we also need the boots on the ground with it, okay?
So
there's
how
also
did we get to
layers.
there?
Well, there's, again, right now, there's no one out there, okay? No one. So it needs to get started working on this administrative rules and procedures and put them in place. Do something for crying out loud, because nothing's being done.
What do you think it's gonna take for something to be done?
I have no idea. I don't even think of that. I'm just concentrating on what happens on a daily basis. I don't think that far ahead.
How are you doing?
I'm
How are you
fine.
holding up?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Really,
one day at
I
a time.
You're amazing.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
One at
It's a
time.
lot of work. We know that you guys have your
It is.
hands full.
And everyone has the same issue along the southwest corridor. And that all depends how you look at it. You know, I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Texas, and that's what I'm gonna do. Plain and simple. And I can only tell you what happens in Brooks County, period.
When you say that you took an oath to protect,
Mhm.
you know, to be here, protect your citizens, protect the state of Texas, and those folks aren't citizens, would you prefer that they weren't in your state? I mean, what would you want? You know, because
Again,
like you said,
what I
you take
would
care of
want
them because
is
it's humane.
have the administration fix policies, okay, to make it compatible to the need that's required. That's important, okay? So it'll take a lot of little layers. This is just not a wand that's gonna say, okay, it's fixed, all right? Because you have all these folks, you know, you have 50 states, and they all have different opinions. And that's what they are, simply opinions. I'm here, 70 miles north, and it really impacts this area. So if we can fix that, and then we go to the next phase. Just like the wall, there's certain stages that you're gonna, and that's what it takes in stages. But we definitely need to sit down across a table and just talk. Because that can be done. We have a lot of folks up there that can be reasonable, but they're not being reasonable because if you look at the pattern, they want to stick to their own party, and they're not willing to negotiate. If you don't negotiate, everything breaks down.
Is that
Nothing gets
is that what you feel like is happening?
Yes.
That you guys are kind of here and the administration is maybe on a different page?
Yes.
Okay,
And,
so
and the only thing we can do, as myself, as Joe Frank, the sheriff, or any sheriff, is keep expressing the issue we're having, and that's what we do. That's all I've done. I've been doing this since '09. Really, nothing has changed for me.
have you talked? I mean, obviously, Governor Abbott has expressed that this is a crisis, that this has become a problem, that we are seeing an uptick in COVID cases in the state. He's kind of been tying it back a little bit to the surge in the border as well. So, are you in communication with him about solutions? What does that look like for the sheriff's departments and the governor? Are you guys working together?
Well, we have had conversations, probably a lot more conversations than with DHS. Right.
Okay.
The governor's been pretty active on this issue. He knows my issues, but then again, you have to line up and prioritize the issues. My main concern are the dead bodies, and he knows that. He understands that very well. So how do we work that? You know, because he was talking about initiating this wall issue. Well, it's a tool, but we need more than that also, right? So the fact now that you have the state police doing this type of work, it takes who's mining the roadways. Now you're looking at narcotics coming through. Who's handling that? Okay, so we're focusing on this. So who's handling the narcotics coming through, the fentanyl and everything else? Exactly.
DPS is a little tied up.
Yes.
You guys are a little occupied.
Yes.
So going back to those are the ones we know about.
Yes.
There's a lot more that we don't
Exactly.
see happening.
There's a lot of layers here that we don't even consider here, right? So as a whole, you got to look at it as a big picture, right? And that's the long-term stuff. Short-term is trying to figure out, okay, we need to get something in place here where everyone can be compatible and be comfortable with it. at least start somewhere. But you're right, there's a lot of narcotics flowing through these highways and byways in the state of Texas, east and west, because there's been some checkpoints that have been closed up in the Sierra Blanca area, back up the Arizona area.
Mostly because of resources.
Because of resources. We definitely cannot afford to close this one down.
Wow.
There's no way.
Wow.
You know, because in talking to sources of information, there's a lot of narcotics that's waiting to be shipped out.
That's waiting to be shipped out? From where?
It's in Mexico, just waiting to be
To get up here and go
to the stash
through?
houses and RGB and then pushed up.
Really? And it goes up just all over the continue? Oh,
All over the country, yeah.
wow. Okay. And so is that just by talking and debriefing and your research? How do you know, or I know you said your sources kind of like.
Well, I did 18 years in that ring. So I still have my resources.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
still talk to them. Okay. And they're concerned with it too because they know that if this thing closes down, they'll be wide open.
So that's basically the only thing stopping from it being wide open is what you.
Absolutely.
And you said that was a conversation that happened,
Mhm.
but did it go further than that, or
We're still, no, I don't.
it's not off the table though that they might close it?
Well, when we left that conversation, I'm kind of hoping it was off the table. I emphasized it. So I'm hoping it's off the table.
And you're waiting right now, and you're meeting with government officials again on Thursday.
Well, the
Ish.
governor was coming down on Thursday.
Oh, the governor's going to come down on
Yes,
Thursday.
but
Okay.
he postponed that.
Interesting. How does that make you? How do you feel about that? Obviously, this is a very
I'm sure he had his reasons for it.
yeah.
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 So I'll leave it at that. But again, it's all work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we have to, you know, us as sheriff, we've got to be like a palm tree. We just got to move with things. You know, we can't be stiff because that'll break you. Now, you ask me how am I dealing with it? Well, I'm like a palm tree. You just go with it. You know,
Yeah. I guess that's the only thing you can do
that's
right
all
now.
we can do, right?
That is all you can do. So your solution, you've laid out kind of what the solution is. You have definitely said that this is an issue. This is a crisis. You have 73 bodies that you've recovered, and you're pretty confident that you'll hit 100 by the end of the year. With all of this said, I mean, we've had a heck of a last 18, 19 months. What do you think is the way to keep your team in a good mind space, to keep your community in a good mind space? I mean, because these things are going to take time. There are layers. This is not going to be an instant gratification thing like we love in America.
Right.
So how do you continue to lead your community and your deputies and be the palm tree? How do you continue that while we wait? Because there is going to be a lot of hurry up and wait, it sounds like.
A lot of moral support, I guess you could say. Yes, that's what you deal with more support. You know, I support I go out and do the work too myself.
Okay.
I'm not.
Do you feel like you've got a lot of great support in your community?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
good.
think I've been pretty upfront on the issues, and they understand it. You know, it's a Democratic county. You know, but they understand the issues, and they believe that I address them correctly, and that's the key. I'm not one side or the other side. The fact is, I'm along, and this is what's happening.
How many terms have you? Areas that we should be going, that we will encounter, you know, some kind of things that people deserve to see right now?
Well, right now I don't have any specific location because it just varies. It really does. And since of course, we just brought in 3 bodies from the field. That's how we're working on the 3 bodies. So, but
Can you tell me, were they dehydrated? What were
yes,
it was the elements.
Yeah. You know, on the flip side of that, at least the body was intact. Okay.
But this, I mean, and that's where you're at?
Yeah.
That's the silver lining for you
Yeah.
guys?
You know,
Okay.
eyeballs were there, fingers were there, toes were there. Because, you know, animals get with it, they'll just tear up the soft tissue.
And that's what you've been dealing with for the last
Oh, absolutely.
8 months and then some? Okay, so we are gonna sit and wait for hopefully some answers and potentially we'll see some kind of reprieve, hopefully, and less deaths in your county. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, That's a lot for you guys to deal with. Do we have any questions that anybody's asking?
No, I think
You've been
everybody's
extremely
just
thorough.
been, everybody's just,
You've
yeah.
been extremely thorough, and we really appreciate your candor. We appreciate your just being very raw about things, because this is it is a layered issue, right? It is,
Yes.
and that's why I'm here, is because this has many facets. This has the humanitarian piece, and this has the public safety piece, and there's a lot of it, and people deserve to know what is good, bad, and indifferent going on, and I think that you've very well covered it. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to be reaching out to you over until Friday while I'm here, just checking in and seeing if you have any new updates or anything. And we're not that far away. We're going to go see the other Sheriff Martinez, who goes by Joe Frank.
Joe Frank,
Okay.
no Ken, but we also
Okay.
work together. Joe Frank and I work together. I worked for the state police for 29 years.
Okay.
So
And then you ended up in this spot.
Yes.
So where were you patrolling when you were DPS? Everywhere?
Yes.
Wow. What spot was your favorite?
For my spot, work in the brush. We did a lot of brush work.
Yeah.
We caught a lot of smugglers, backpackers coming to the brush.
I bet you that's adrenaline.
It was exciting.
Yeah, but now you're dealing with the flip side of it,
The flip side of it,
and that's a
yes.
lot. That's a lot for you.
Yes, yes.
Anything else that you want to talk with?
I think
Sheriff Martinez?
I think he's done a great job. A great
Been
job.
Spectacular.
Thank you.
We're gonna keep. Let's keep the camera going while I walk out, if that's okay, and
Yes.
I'll just kind of say goodbye to everybody, so it's not.
I think we're the only ones left in here too.
Yes,
We are. Are you holding
Yeah.
that, Mom?
You left there.
Oh,
Yeah.
left my mask. Gotta put that on. Okay.
Do you want to?
If you can hold it for a second, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your next couple of days looking like? What's the agenda?
He's like, oh, busy.
I got a meeting back in my calendar on Thursday, so
Okay.
I'm hoping to get some type of results back in terms of where we at, right?
But it's not gonna be the governor, you're gonna be talking with somebody else.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, well, I'm definitely be bugging you. If you want me to come
We-
along, I don't hate it.
We know how busy you are and we really appreciate you. We appreciate you. Your community you're so lucky to have you.
Really.
Extremely
we
lucky.
are. We have,
Yeah.
a lot of people watching because they want to know what's going on. And you've given us a really good insight.
I
so
totally
thank
believe
you.
in transparency. I totally believe that us as humans, we can sort things out. We
Yeah.
just need to sit down and if it's just drinking and barbecue or whatever the issue might be, but you can sort things out.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and you gotta talk about it, and you gotta be open about it, or else you can't fix it.
Transparent.
Yeah.
And I know law enforcement nowadays is different. Since when I started 22 years ago,
Yeah.
totally different.
Yeah.
But we still have a value that we need to uphold.
And you took that up, right? Yes, you keep being that palm tree, Sheriff. We appreciate you again. Again, really, and I will be reaching
Thank
out.
you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Wait, does it go up this?
Yes.
Is that the way? All right. We're gonna trek through the desert over here. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Get home safely. I'm gonna take this over. Let's see. Hi guys. We're going a little wonky. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you guys felt like that was a long interview, but hopefully you felt like it was some good insight. Again, it's all about being transparent and showing everything. So you guys, I didn't pick and choose any sound bites. He was open and honest about how he felt, about what he thought, what he was witnessing, what he was experiencing, and that is the mission and the plan for this trip is to just share everything that we learn and allow you guys to really make the determination. Make the determination for yourselves. Get your own opinions based on facts, and I'm not going to be giving you any commentary. That is a promise. But I will be, reiterating and talking with them and saying, okay, so this is what I understand. This is what I hear you saying. And having those kinds of confirmations is really important to me. So I'm going to try to get this gimbal to work again. Here we go. Sorry guys, I'm trying to fix this little thing on my phone. Okay, I'm gonna just have to hold it. Technology, but wow. So we learned a lot. Let me close this door. It is a scorcher. So we learned A lot. Wow. Oh my gosh. So he gave us so much information. So we have a lot of research and a lot of legwork to do tonight to really figure out some of the logistics that he was talking about. I have reached out to DHS. I have reached out to Secretary Mayorkas, and I have also reached out to the Catholic Charities Foundation. That was one of the NGOs he was talking about. We are hopefully going to be able to talk with them. They have a couple of shelters and facilities that they have been housing migrants at. From what I understand, they can house about 1,300 migrants, and they're getting about 1,800 per day, I believe. So we're going to be talking with them, hopefully. I have reached out to the National Immigration Law Center. They have not really been able to answer my questions, so I am going to work on trying to get a hold of the ACLU, trying to get a hold of another organization, and see if we can get some information about vaccinations and requirements for vaccinations and what that looks like as well. Because, I mean, he was just saying 20% of the bodies that they've recovered have been COVID positive in Brooks County alone. This is 70 miles north of McAllen, which is where we flew into this morning, which is where that's where most of the migrants are kind of being like they go in the McAllen area and they get kind of their directions where they're going. So McAllen is kind of a hub. We're going to be there a couple of different places over the next couple of days. Tomorrow we are going to be up in Del Rio. That is one of the places where the other Sheriff Joe Frank Martinez, he's up there. We're going to be talking with him because they have had they're getting drownings. He said that normally they have 2 to 3 drownings a year. They've already had, I believe, 12. So they have had a big surge up there as well, and they're dealing with a lot of issues up there. So we're going to work on some tech things as well. I know some of you said that he was a little bit hard to hear, so I'm going to work on some tech stuff there. I do have a microphone, but it was kind of, when we got here, we literally landed, got here, he was ready to meet us, he was waiting for us, so we like jazzed in. So we'll be working out some of those kinks and those details. So thanks for bearing with us. Wow, I hope you guys took away some information from that interview with him. Really insightful. They're definitely maxed out. They're definitely maxed out. So we're going to get some insight, find out, I mean, you know, talking about the humanitarian side of it, right? He was talking about they've had 73 people die year to date. He is saying that they will easily hit 100. And normally they average 50 a year. So the humanitarian side, I mean, no matter how you slice it, people are dying. And he just is having a really, really hard time with that, obviously, in his county, not just because they're human beings, but the residual impacts are much larger. They span a lot longer because that impacts allocations for their county, a bunch of different things. So, gosh, we learned a lot from him. So we're going to get back on the road. We're going to head back down towards McAllen. We are going to be hitting different places like La Jolla. We're going to be going to the Rio Grande Valley, obviously. We're going to be going to a bunch of different places. So stick around with us. We're going to be going live Facebook. We'll be on Periscope, which is Twitter. And then we are working on getting on YouTube Live as well. So we will be on those platforms just to prevent any kind of like bias from any platform or anything like that. Just, we're trying to make it as transparent and objective as possible. So that was the start and end of the process of that interview. So I'm going to jump off so I can drive, and then we will get back on live when we get to our next destination and let you know what we're finding and what we're seeing. We want to go near the Donna, Texas facility. There is the Donna International Bridge that migrants are kind of getting shelter under while they wait to be processed. So there's a lot of things, like Sheriff Martinez said, there are a lot of layers to this. So we're gonna head down back that way, and I'll be back on live here in a little bit. But thank you guys for being along for this journey. This is certainly something that I'm experiencing right here with you, and it's a really cool journey so far. We've learned a lot, and sharing those moments with you in that interview with, you know, a sheriff being so open and honest, like that was really awesome to have you guys along for that. So thank you. We'll see you guys in a little bit. We're gonna drive for a little while now, so I don't think you guys need to be along for the drive. But then also in like a little bit later, I want to go over some headlines with you guys and talk about how those headlines can kind of make us feel a certain way and think certain things because the objective journalism piece is really, really important to me. And I really want us to all become more responsible consumers of news. That's kind of my MO, my goal here. But, you know, when I put out the post saying, do you guys trust what you're getting when you read or you know, watch the news? And 90% of people said no. That's my life, my love, my passion. So it was heartbreaking, and I needed to try to find a way to gain trust back. And so for me, that's being transparent and doing this. So hopefully we can start to gain a little bit of trust back by showing you our process. And yeah, I'll be back on in just a little bit. Thank you guys. I would really, really encourage you guys to scrub back through and watch part of that interview. If you missed any of it, very, very compelling. A lot of really good information on all aspects of this issue down here at the border. So we'll talk to you in a little bit. Be safe out there, my friends.